This video is meant to show you some of the things you can do with a tile farm. I'm not going to really show you how to use the tile farm, and I'm not going to explain any of the mathematics, what things it illustrates about math. I'm going to do that in other videos. So one thing is you can use the tile farm pretty much just like a set of pattern blocks. And in this way, it's something that is really just like a very simple thing that could be done by kindergarten kids. And when it's being used this way, there are still some advantages to using the tile farm. One of the advantages is you can color your pieces, and you can decorate your pieces with various sorts of lines and dots, and this can really make the patterns be a lot more interesting. We also have many different kinds of shapes that can be used. Okay, however, the thing that really makes the tile farm powerful is what I call the join command. So here, what I can do is when I hit the join command, it makes it as though this whole group of tiles was actually one of my original group of tiles. So when I click on this edge here, this whole group of tiles is just joined to this edge. And then I could click on this edge, and the group of tiles would be joined there. And then if I wanted to, I could say repeat it in some other fashion, like maybe I'll just join this here and here and here, and you see that I can start making some very nice symmetrical patterns very quickly using the join command. Okay, but the thing that really makes the tile farm powerful is when you start doing things recursively. So here I'm going to lay down what I call the seed for a tiling pattern. This is based on one of the Archimedean tiling patterns, which I will discuss in a different video. And if I just start joining this seed to itself, every time I join it, it doubles the number of blocks, and we see that we get we can very easily start creating quite complex patterns. Now, when I go to elementary schools and show kids how to use the tile farm, one of the most fruitful ways of showing kids how to make quite intricate patterns easily is I first teach them how to make big polygons out of little polygons. So for example, here I'm going to make a dodecagon out of just the classic pattern blocks. And this may look a little difficult, but really when I go to second and third grade classes, and if you just start slowly, it's not hard to teach the kids how to do stuff like this. Now, it turns out this pattern's a little more interesting if I color it slightly differently. So the next thing is just teaching kids how to tile with some simple tiles. So for example, how do you tile with hexagons? It's very easy to show kids how to tile with hexagons like this, and then you can show them how to tile with squares and rhombi and triangles and stuff like that. And once you teach them how to tile with things like that, you can actually start showing them how to tile with maybe two sets of tiles. And here is really an example. Is what we're going to do is we're actually going to tile with dodecagons and triangles, and I could show you how to do that, but I'm just going to or all by itself, but I'm just going to show you the final product. When I do that, and this is really based on one of the Archimedean tilings. When I do that, I get quite a complex pattern that when you actually look at it, it's very difficult to see that this was the way I created the pattern, but that was how I created it. As I mentioned, I have many different groups of tiles, and when you go over and start dealing with some of the more complicated sets, the edges aren't all the same length. So what happens is when I add an edge to a tile, or add a tile to an existing tiling, I just make the edge of the tile that I'm adding grow so that it has the same size as the edge that I'm adding it to. And this allows you to start making some sort of fractal-like patterns very quickly. We could just keep going on carrying out this process, but I'm going to stop here. Now, another sort of thing that happens when the tiles don't have all the same length, or the edges aren't all the same length, is you can get spiral patterns. So here, this is called the Cairo tile. It's one of the Lave tiles. It's the dual to one of the Archimedean tilings. When I add this to itself, this is going to grow so that this, so that when I add this tile to itself, it grows so that the edges will be the same length as I add them. And then when I add it, if I add this to this, this whole thing is going to have to grow again when I add it, and it grows again. And I can go down like this, add it another time, and I could keep doing this quite a bit. But you get the idea. So I'm just going to give you some examples of just how neat some of these groups of pieces can be, even the ones that look like they're sort of boring. Here are the bricks. You can make all of the standard brick patterns that you'll see on patios and in people's houses and in airports. And it can really be very interesting just to go around and see that you know how to make all these patterns and can remember what they are, especially when you start understanding about symmetry and things like that. But I'm just going to show you how, just using a very slight variation on this pattern, we can actually get much more interesting patterns. So I'm just going to do the same brick pattern, but I'm going to put some lines on it. Now when I put the lines on it, and I just join it to itself repeatedly, this way and this way, I get really a very intricate pattern where we just see all sorts of stuff happening, and you just see kind of one shape jumping out at you after another. And pretty much along these same lines, I could go to the Lave tiles and I could show you the Cairo tile again. Okay, so here, this is more the way the Cairo tile was meant to be used than to make spirals. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some lines on it. These are ones that are just kind of like chopping off the corners. And I'm going to tile with the Cairo tile like that. I think I'm going to move it over here just a little bit so that I can very easily tile with it in this direction. move it to the center, make it a little bigger, and once again we see this very nice sort of lines interweaving with each other. And all of this could be done much more artistically if I was, you know, paying more attention to the colors and all of that sort of stuff. Now, one thing is the way I like to use the tile farm. You know, my favorite way of using it is really to just kind of learn very general ways of making patterns, and then sometimes just seeing what comes out of it when you make the pattern. And that's what a lot of these things that we've been doing are based on. Like, you know, you just, like when I put those lines on there, I had no idea what was really going to come out, but the thing that came out was actually very neat. But sort of another way of doing things is going through, say, books on Islamic tilings, for example, and seeing tiling patterns and then trying to figure out how do you make those using the tile farm. And really there are just a bunch of very neat examples of like patterns that are in the Alhambra that you can very easily make using the tile farm. Here I'm just going to show you an example of sort of how you have to be a little clever sometime. Here basically I've made this kind of an arrow, two-sided arrow, but I put these little things on them because that's going to help me actually join things. So here I'm just going to join that to itself, and I'm eventually actually going to get rid of or make these arrows so that they're so that they're disguised by changing the background color. I'm going to delete our original arrow there, and now I'm just going to join this like this, and then like this and this. Okay, I'm gonna, you know, this is already pretty nice pattern, but if you want to really see the thing that's like in the Alhambra, let's get the background blue. And now we really are pretty much just seeing these white pieces on a blue background. And this is just, you know, one of the many Islamic tilings you can make. So this was meant just to be an overview of the sort of patterns you can make. I haven't really talked about any of the math involved. I'm going to do that in a different video.